one of the things that I do have to mention is in 1995, it was Montgomery's Bicentennial. And we had a whole year of festivities and everything for the Bicentennial. And our sister city from Neuilly-Plaisance came in and brought in major artisans. We had a show down at the Kenwood Mall where we had artisans and a street scene set up. They made all kinds of whatever they made, and it was for sale down there. We had our 4th of July parade, and then we had the outing over at Peterloon where the French had brought 8 or 10 chefs to go ahead and do the meal and cook the meal out there. And it was just a really great time for celebrating our bicentennial. The interesting thing, a part of that, is that 2 years later, we had to reciprocate, and I and a contingent of people volunteered to go over because Neuilly-Plaisance was celebrating their bicentennial. Now, that seemed strange that here in Ohio, Montgomery was celebrating its 200th year, and Neuilly-Plaisance over in France was celebrating its 100th year. But the one thing that they told me there, and they introduced me to this person at one of their outings, said the one thing that we really learned from Montgomery was volunteers. In France, we have no volunteers. Everybody has to be paid for everything that they do. And he took me to a booth over there and said, here, I want you to meet our first volunteer. And so, I mean, and I know that over the years, this partnership with Neuilly-Plaisance has continued, and it's really been a tremendous thing for both Montgomery and the residents of Montgomery and the residents of Neuilly-Plaisance.
I have to reflect back also on probably the most personal memorable experiences are with our visitors from Neuilly-Plaisance. We had the 25th anniversary of our twinning with our sister city in France, and they came over here in 2014, a delegation of 19 individuals we got to host for a week, and it's just a marvelous time when you have people from another country live in your home, experience their culture, and I was fortunate then even 9 months later to go over and be a part of a delegation that during a dedication of a street in a park to the city of Montgomery on their inaugural 4th of July parade in France. And it's just, those are priceless memories for me and my family that you just don't get otherwise.
And I guess we all have a number of them, but one of them that really hits home to me was when we went over and visited Neuilly-Plaisance and for their 100th anniversary. They had a big parade there, and they were passing out roses and everything to people. But there's 2 little incidents that happened. The mayor came up to me and he said, Ivan, we're going to go ahead, all this through an interpreter, understand, because I can't speak a word of French. But he said, this parade route takes us through an area of Neuilly-Plaisance that is not a very good neighborhood. He said, there's a large group of immigrants that live in these buildings here, and we don't anticipate any problem or anything. But he said, and this is back in 1997. He says, we don't anticipate any problems. He says, but you are Jewish. And he said, I'm a little concerned about that. He said, I've got 2 Secret Service people that are going to be with you going through the parade. And we never thought anything about it until recently with the incidents that have been going on, that they had the problem 20 years ago, and they were aware of it. But boy, that hit home. And so it's a little story. But on the other side of that, as we were going through the parade, some elderly man pulled me over, and he said something, but he handed me a postcard. And he says, basically, Paul was there, and he was interpreting for me. He said, the man wants you to have this. And I said, but it's a postcard of his. He said, yeah, but it's a card that he got during the Second World War from an American officer, serviceman. And he thought that it should go back to the United States, to an American
Oh, wow.
at that point.
That's cool.
And I said, I think maybe he ought to hold on to it and keep it in that. He says, no, he wants you to have it. So I took it and that. So you have these little incidents that may go into your memory and you don't really talk or think about them until something else happens. And you say, oh my God, you know, what happened there? So.
Yeah.